Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere! This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 9, 2022 NFL predictions. Well, the Fanatic, for 2 consecutive weeks, had a very good week in both my against the spread and straight up picks. I am definitely moving in the right direction. I am ecstatic about that. It is thrilling, and it was definitely just another wild week in the NFL in terms of how different games went, how outcomes came and went, and to be above 500 and to have 2 consecutive 10-win weeks straight up, I will gladly take that. So I am thrilled at that moment. So just for a recap for everybody so far. So last week against the spread, I have gone 9-5. And straight up, I went 11-3. That equals up to 64.3% against the spread. And straight up, that equals up to 78.7% straight up. So definitely, it's been a very long time since I've had 2 winning weeks, both against the spread and straight up, as well as I've done the last 2 weeks. So I'm very happy about that. And now overall for the year, against the spread and straight up, this far late in the season, I am back at 500 again. I believe last time I was at 500. I was believe week 3 or 4, and I was able to hit the 500 mark. So I am thrilled through 8 weeks to be able to say to everybody, I am 60-2 with 2 pushes against the spread, and straight up now I am 70-51-1. These last 2 weeks have really helped boost my percentages up. So now I'm up to 57.8%. So definitely that goal of 62% is in reach. I definitely feel very good about that. Or I definitely feel, again, I am moving in a direction that I am thrilled in. And yeah, so, and once again for everybody, I have the Cincinnati Bengals here. I believe I have a -3 or -3.5 against the Cleveland Browns, even with the knowledge of wide receiver Jamar Chase being out for tonight, and out for an extended time between 4 to 6 weeks due to a hip injury. But Zach Taylor has already said that they are not going to put him on IR. But what a crazy week. The Ravens getting a big victory to start out week 8, beating the Buccaneers 27-22. The Ravens, after having Lamar Jackson throw it 32 times in the first half and only having 1 rushing attempt in the first half, we ran for 202 yards against the Tampa Bay defense the second half, which allowed our offense to score, I believe, 24 points, which gave us the huge win. Now Lamar's 2-0 against Tom Brady. I think it is only him and Russell Wilson that share that regular season distinction of beating Tom Brady in the regular season that often and be undefeated against him with multiple games. But that was a crazy performance. You look at what happened in Philadelphia and you look what happened in Dallas. 2 of the best teams in the NFC continue to roll against the Bears and Steelers respectively. The Eagles are now 7-0 for the second time in franchise history. I believe last time they were 7-0 was 2004. And that is the year when they made the Super Bowl and lost to the Patriots. But this, by far, and anybody out there that wants to argue with me, if you don't think that Philadelphia isn't the best team in the NFL, you are just being a hater. Look, you could argue, Buffalo and KC, but I think after what you've seen out of the Eagles, and for the first time, in a while, the Eagles actually scored 2 touchdowns in the second half, which was amazing. They had 4 touchdown possessions outside of the red zone, 4 25-plus yard touchdown passes, 3 to A.J. Brown, who had 156 yards and 3 TDs. I think I said he was the first receiver since Kevin Curtis to have 3 receiving touchdowns in a half. But the Eagles just continued to roll. That was their most impressive all-around game. Best turnover differential. Got a couple more sacks on Kenny Pickett. And I think the Eagles they have a genuine chance. And I know, I heard Kyle Brandt this morning say, oh, you really can't say anything about the perfect season though you're 10-0. Well, if you look at the Eagles' schedule, it's very easy. I think up to the point of the Titans and Giants, that back-to-back stretch, to where they're finally going to play a quality team, or a team that's not 500 or worse, I think the Eagles are definitely going to win those games in a pretty decisive way. But, there was that. The Miami Dolphins, what a game for them. Detroit goes up on them quick, 14-0. You had a running back by the name of, I wrote this guy's name down. You had a running back by the name of Braylon Sanders fumbled the football in the second drive for the Lions. Jamal Williams cashes that in. And by the way, Jamal Williams is actually tied with Nick Chubb for the most rushing touchdowns in the league so far this year at 8, which is kind of amazing to think about because Nick Chubb is Nick Chubb, one of the 5 best running backs in the league, and Jamal Williams is the backup running back to DeAndre Swift. But kudos to Mr. Williams there. But then after that, the Dolphins really put on, the gas. They scored 5 touchdowns in their next 6 drives, and their offense was able to, when they held the ball, to keep away from the Lions' defense, which is the worst defense in points and yards, to win the game 31-27. It's also crazy in a way to think about this. I also just want to mention this quickly. Think about what's happened for the Atlanta Falcons and the Seattle Seahawks. It is just crazy to me to think about. Before the season started, both teams decided to trade away their best quarterbacks in Matt Ryan and Russell Wilson, respectively, to move on to 2 bridge quarterbacks in Geno Smith and Marcus Mariota. Journeymen who have been on, Geno's been on 3 or 4 different teams. Mariota's been on, 3 teams at this point in his career. These 2 guys are replacing the 2 best quarterbacks in their franchise's history. And if you are asking the Seahawks and Falcons today, compared to the Broncos and the Colts, who won those trades, the staffs and the managements beat the quarterbacks, which I did not expect at the beginning of the year. Matt Ryan, I was kind of a little skeptical on, and of course, he's had a lot more turnovers. The offensive line isn't great, but I did not expect Russ to be playing as bad as he did. And that's even with the victory he had against the Jaguars on Sunday morning, or Sunday afternoon, depending on where you are internationally. But that's just a crazy story, in my opinion. That is an absolutely crazy story. That the two of the best quarterbacks for 2 franchises left and were were traded from their teams to teams that we thought were going to be able to use those guys, those older quarterbacks, to make a change. And both of them right now are below 500. One's benched, and one has played the worst in his entire career, situational or not. And Mariota's now at 3 straight games of 100-plus passer rating. The Falcons are actually leading the NFC South by themselves for the first time since 2016 when they went to the Super Bowl. And the Seahawks, they have 3 double-digit victories with Geno. And that's the first time since 2015. Weeks 12 to 15, or weeks 12 to 14 for the Seahawks, that they're winning games by double digits with Geno Smith, who is, in the comeback player of the year conversation, and he might actually be able to have a second career as the quarterback for the Seahawks. Fall talent they have, So I think that's just an absolutely crazy story, that if you told anybody at the beginning of the year, those 2 teams make those moves, and the two teams with the journeyman average quarterbacks are going to be clearly outplaying both their respective counterparts, nobody would have believed you. Nobody would have believed you. And then a couple other things, or the last thing, and I'll mention everything else when we go into our picks. I do want to congratulate Bill Belichick for getting his 325th victory. He now passes George Halas for second all-time in terms of coach victories. He is now only, I believe, 23 games away from passing Don Shula for the all-time winningest coach in NFL history. Job well done there, and I also do want to thank Zach Wilson, a guy that I like, who is better than the prince that was promised, William Lawrence, but I'll get that in a second. But yesterday was not his day, and he once again proved that the Patriots' defense is just his kryptonite. But congratulations to Bill Belichick for that. So before I get into the picks, we are in one of the 2 weeks of the year during the bye stretch of the season where there are 6 teams, a whopping 6 teams on the bye this week. So that list this week includes the Cleveland Browns, the Dallas Cowboys, the Denver Broncos, the New York Giants, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the San Francisco 49ers. So you have Nick Chubb, Joey Brissett, Amari Cooper, the Browns defense, Cade York, Dak, Zeke, CD, Dalton Schultz, Cowboys defense, Russell Wilson, Melvin Gordon, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones, Giants defense, Graham Gano, Najee, Pickett, Freiermuth, Jimmy, Christian McCaffrey, Kittle, Debo, the Niners defense, Robbie Gould. If you have any of those players on your fantasy teams, bench them because they will not be playing this week. Once again, the teams that are on bye are the Cleveland Browns, Dallas Cowboys, Denver Broncos, New York Giants, Pittsburgh Steelers, and the San Francisco 49ers. Alright, it's time for my picks for this week. So this Thursday, when the 7-0 Philadelphia Eagles travel to Houston to take on the 1-5-1 Houston Texans, the Philadelphia Eagles are 13-point favorites in this game. In one of the bigger spreads, but actually, just from looking at the perspective, it's the best team in the league playing the worst team in the league. The 13 points, it's a lot, but I think Philadelphia is just that much better. Give me the Philadelphia Eagles here, minus 13, and the Philadelphia Eagles straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-3 Los Angeles Chargers travel to Atlanta to take on the 4-4 Atlanta Falcons, the Los Angeles Chargers are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me the Los Angeles Chargers here to win straight up, but I'm going to take Atlanta. I'm going to hedge. I'm going to take Atlanta plus 3. Then the next game, when the 5-3 Miami Dolphins travel to Chicago to take on the 3-5 Chicago Bears, the Miami Dolphins are 4.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Miami here minus 4.5, and give me Miami straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-6 Carolina Panthers travel to Cincinnati to take on the 5-3 or 4-4 Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals are 8-point favorites in this game. Give me the Carolina Panthers here plus 8, but I'm going to take Cincinnati straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-5 Green Bay Packers travel to Detroit to take on the 1-6 Detroit Lions. The Green Bay Packers are 3.5-point favorites in this game. I know you might criticize me for hedging a lot of stuff, but that's what I'm going to do here once again. Give me the Green Bay Packers here to win straight up, but I'm going to take the Detroit Lions plus 3.5. Then the next game, when the 3-4-1 Indianapolis Colts travel to New England to take on the 4-4 New England Patriots. The New England Patriots are 6-point favorites in this game. Give me New England here minus 6, and New England straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-1 Buffalo Bills travel to New York to take on the 5-3 New York Jets. The Buffalo Bills are 10.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Buffalo here minus 10.5, and Buffalo straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-1 Minnesota Vikings travel to Washington to take on the 4-4 Washington Commanders. The Minnesota Vikings are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me Minnesota here minus 3, and give me Minnesota straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-5 Las Vegas Raiders travel to Jacksonville to take on the 2-6 Jacksonville Jaguars. The Las Vegas Raiders are 1-point favorites in this game in what I would call the cruddy toss-up game of the week. You know, this is a game it's literally a coin flip and is a 1-point spread. I'm going to take Jacksonville here plus 1 and Jacksonville straight up. You know, honestly, like I couldn't tell you, how to go, but I'm going to take Jacksonville. I'll explain, but I'm taking once again Jacksonville here plus 1 and Jacksonville straight up. Then the next game, when the 5-3 Seattle Seahawks travel to Arizona to take on the 3-5 Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals, amazingly, in this spot, with Seattle getting the 3 straight victories, like I just mentioned, by double digits, and how consistent Seattle's been. And they just played Arizona 2 weeks ago. I'm sorry, 3 weeks ago. They played this team 3 weeks ago and beat them. But they're getting 2.5 points. So I'm going to make amends for what I did last week. Give me the Seattle Seahawks here plus 2.5 and the Seattle Seahawks straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-4 Los Angeles Rams travel to Tampa Bay to take on the 3-5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a rematch from the 2022 divisional game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 2.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Tampa Bay here minus 2.5 and Tampa Bay straight up. And on Sunday night, when the 5-2 Tennessee Titans travel to Kansas City to take on the 5-2 Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are 11-point favorites in this game. Give me Kansas City here minus 11. I know it's a massive spread, and I will explain something later on my pick. But right now I'm going to the Kansas City here minus 11 and Kansas City straight up. And lastly, in the Monday night game, when the 5-3 Baltimore Ravens travel to New Orleans to take on the 3-5 New Orleans Saints, the Baltimore Ravens are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me the Baltimore Ravens here minus 3 and the Baltimore Ravens straight up. All right, so time for my thoughts on each game. The Philadelphia Eagles over the Houston Texans. Look, Jalen Hurts and that Eagles team have played sensational. It's like, here's an interesting stat. Jalen Hurts, all of Hurts' 4 touchdown passes to the air came from 25 yards or longer. Since 1980, Dan Marino is the only player to have more 25-yard touchdowns in a single game. He threw 5 in Week 1 in 1994 against the Pats. So, that was how impressive that was. That was a new career high for Jalen with 4 touchdown passes. He's also won 10 consecutive games for the Eagles, or 10 consecutive starts, which breaks Donovan McNabb and I believe Norm Van Brocklin's record for most consecutive starts won by an Eagles quarterback. And I believe they said that A.J. Brown threw the first, I think, 50 games or something, 50 games, that he has 25 touchdowns through the first 50 games. And I believe the only 2 other receivers that have that kind of rate is Julio Jones and Mike Evans. I heard that stat in the broadcast, and everybody, wants to make a comment or saw the broadcast. Please let me know if I misquoted that stat, but I thought that was an impressive one. And they have the best turnover differential in the league. They got 2 more turnovers yesterday. One on a strip sack and the other on a pick by Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And the Eagles are just rolling. Like, the Philadelphia Eagles are going through every opponent like Swiss cheese. They're playing consistent. They feel comfortable. They look steady. They look firm. And it's all going right for Philadelphia. And also, here's a fun thing, too. So, A.J. Brown was traded from the Titans. A.J. Brown has 659 receiving yards. Okay? The Tennessee Titans, 6 primary wide receivers together, all 6 of them, have 658 yards combined. That tells you how much the Titans are missing A.J. Brown and how big of a mistake it was for A.J. Brown to be left by the Titans. Again, he's living up to that $25 million. I did not think he was going to be able to live up to that contract, but I knew the offer that the Titans were offering was an incredibly sad lowball to even begin negotiations with. And I think A.J. said he would have taken a comparable offer. But when your max was 18, when you saw guys were getting 20, 22, you'd have to at least up the floor and see if you could work on it. But he's definitely proving the Titans wrong that way. But and then look, the Eagles, like I said before, they have the best turnover differential in the league. And the Texans, there's not a lot of great things going for them. The only great thing going for them is Dameon Pierce, who is a top 10 rusher in this league. He's their best offensive weapon. He has 529 yards rushing. Kamir Grugier-Hill, he asked for his release, and he will probably get let go by the Texans. And they might trade Brandon Cooks here over the next day before the deadline. Look, and there is some weird synergy as well. Anybody that are baseball fans, of course, everybody knows that the Houston Astros are playing the Philadelphia Phillies in the World Series, so that's great. In the days between this week, between Astros and Phillies, depending on how long that series go, on Thursday we're going to have the Eagles going to Houston. And I know it's going to be weird because, again, the Texans, as weird as it's been and as bad as they have been, they are the worst team in the league. They've only had 1 loss this year by 13-plus points, and that was 2 weeks ago against the Raiders, where they lost, I believe, 38-20, or it might have been week 3. But they've only had 1 loss by 13-plus points. But this Eagles team has just been able to put it on them. And I think, again, short week, Jalen coming back home to around the Houston area, the way he's been playing, I think he is now, I would say right now, he is the leading MVP candidate after what I saw Josh Allen do against the Packers in the second half yesterday. And just Jalen's overall numbers are just fundamentally better than Josh's, and that's where you have to include passing and rushing. But yeah, I just think this is one of those games. This is the best team in the league against the worst. If you've tried to go do survival pools, if anybody's still alive, I know I'm not. That if you wanted to have just the easiest pick, this one would probably be it. Because I just think there's no way the Texans win this game, and I don't even think it's going to be fundamentally close. So that's why I like Philadelphia here, -13, and Philadelphia straight up. The next game, the Los Angeles Chargers over the Atlanta Falcons. This is one to where I am going to go with my gut here and go with the better quarterback. Because look, I know the Falcons, look, they've been an absolute surprise. I'm going to congratulate Lorenzo Carter. He had a great pick 6 on P.J. Walker, and that basically helped turn the tide. And I also want to give Arthur Smith some credit. Instead of in that late spot in the game, on 4th down, instead of trying to go for it and possibly stop the other side and not take the firm touchdown lead, he took the field goal from Koo, that allowed the miss from Eddie Pinheiro to count, and Eddie Pinheiro missed, of course, the 33-yard field goal, which should have made, and it gave the Falcons that victory by making the smart choice and taking points at that moment. Also, congratulate Marcus Mariota. He's the third quarterback in NFL history to lead a game-winning drive on his birthday. The only other two other quarterbacks that did that was Russell Wilson and Warren Moon. But I look at this game, and look, the Chargers, the one problem that they had, which could be the Achilles heel for the Falcons, is their run defense. The Chargers have a bottom 5 rush defense, and they are the worst defense in terms of yard per individual rush that they've given up for the season. Khalil Mack has had a very nice bounce-back year in a good way. He's had 6 sacks through all the games. He's definitely making an impact. And also, from everybody knows from 2 weeks ago, the Chargers did lose J.C. Jackson for the year, and Mike Williams, who's going to be out for multiple weeks. I do not think he will be back. But just in this kind of moment, I think for the Chargers season to somehow stay afloat, I think they have to beat this Falcons team. This Falcons team is talented, and they don't have Calvin Ridley. And this has been a great story. And maybe the Achilles heel will be Mariota's ability to run along with Tyler Algier. If Cordero Patterson can come back, because I know he'd be IR eligible soon. Corey Huntley. If they can run the ball effectively, I think they will have a good chance to win. I think the Chargers, just with their offense, with the injuries to the secondary, to A.J. Terrell and Casey Hayward, their top 2 corners, their safeties are okay, but not great. I think Herbert can move the ball enough through the air that I think Mariota's going to have to try to match with his arm. And I don't think Herbert can beat Mariota in that type of contest. And again, I want to congratulate the Falcons. First time since 2016 that they have held the outright lead in the NFC South. But I am just going to trust the Chargers here with some rest. They get, the kicker back and some other guys healthy, that they can win this game against the Falcons team that has all the potential. They have the better coach, the better running game, and all that. But to just trust Herbert in this type of environment, on the road, understanding how big it is for their season to win this game in a tight, close game. So, but I'm going to take Atlanta because, again, all the things I just said are going in Atlanta's favor, so I'm going to hedge right that with that. But that's why I like Atlanta here +3, but the Los Angeles Chargers straight up. The next game, the Miami Dolphins over the Chicago Bears. This is one to where the Dolphins, Tua is 5-0 as a starter this year when he finishes the game. He has the number 1 quarterback rating in ESPN's QBR, and that's missing 2 games. They've been able to run the ball effectively. There was a crazy thing too. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle combined have 1,688 receiving yards. That's the most by a duo in the first 8 games in the Super Bowl era. And honestly, here was a crazy thing I found out this morning. So Tyreek Hill, if he keeps going at the pace that he has with 9 games left, he has a chance at about 120 per game to get 2,000 receiving yards. He may become, again, I don't know if they're going to be able to keep that clip, some of the defense they're playing, and also I just think teams are eventually just going to have to double or triple Tyreek and let Jalen Waddle or somebody else kill them. But it's just insane to think about how dominant and how electric Tyreek Hill has been in that offense with Tua throwing the football. And I think for me with the Dolphins, this is showing that both sides, Mahomes and Hill, both really have benefited from this trade. And Tua's job basically was saved due to McDaniel and the Dolphins acquiring Tyreek to pair with Jalen. And look, I think for the Dolphins, this is just an easy game because you're playing a Bears team that has been more electric offensively. They've had 3 straight games, 235 plus yards rushing. Justin Fields has about 60 plus yards rushing in 3 straight games. He scored touchdowns through the ground the last 2 games. But my problem is just that Bears defense. They let Robert Quinn get traded to the Philadelphia Eagles for a 4th round pick. And besides Roquan Smith, they don't have any significant quality defensive player. That was the most points the Bears have allowed since week 2 of 2015 when they have 48 in week 2. And I think one of the biggest reasons is Darnell Mooney and that receiving offense is not very great. Darnell Mooney is still leading this team with only 364 yards receiving. Fortunately for the Dolphins, they don't really have that great of a pass rush, even with the additions of Melvin Ingram and Emmanuel Ogbah, who was paid $65 million over the last 4 years just this offseason. But at the end of the day, when you look at this type of game, I'm just going to trust that, the Dolphins with Mostert and Edmonds, along with Tua, who had a big clutch scramble later on in the game when the game was starting maybe to teeter. Think about it. I just think this Dolphins offense just can go through the Bears pretty effectively. I don't think any of their corners can stop Tyreek or Waddle. Gesicki's a great red zone target. And even though the Bears have started to move the ball better offensively and score more points, I just don't think, if you're telling me you have the Dolphins offense with Tua and the Bears offense with Justin Fields, I think the Dolphins offense clearly blows them out of the water, and I think they win this game because of that. I just think Tua's leg and arm is just a little bit better than his arm's definitely better than Fields, but I will give Justin Fields this. He is a much better athlete than Tua is as a player. And again, just looking at how that Cowboys team was just Pollard had 14 carries and 130 yards and 3 touchdowns. I don't know if Mostert and Edmonds can do that, but they definitely can. You definitely can run the ball on this Bears defense. And I don't think Fields is going to have a great day, especially with some of the guys in the Dolphins secondary against a lot of the ball hawks that'll kind of limit the Bears passing. So that's what Miami here -4.5 and Miami straight up. The next game, the Cincinnati Bengals over the Carolina Panthers. Man, oh man, what a game. When you watch that game, D'Onta Foreman had himself a day. And actually, I'm going to give a quick shout out to D'Onta Foreman. He had, over the last 2 games, he's had 41 carries for 236 yards and 3 touchdowns, was the bell cow back for the Panthers yesterday. Was helping them drive, get big conversions. And P.J. Walker, man, he had an up and down day. He threw the pick 6 to Lorenzo Carter, but he threw the pass of the year, the potential game-winning Hail Mary to DJ Moore, which was the 4th longest catch of his career and the longest catch he's had since Week 7 of the 2020 season, and is the longest TD pass of P.J. Walker's career. But it came down to an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty when DJ Moore went up to the sideline and took off his helmet, and Eddie Pinheiro, the former Bears and Jets kicker, missed a 48-yard extra point. And then after C.J. Henderson, the former first-round pick from Florida, picked off Marcus Mariota to get it 50-plus yards down the field, a chip shot field goal that Pinheiro had then. He missed a 33-yarder, which allowed Mariota to get that big read option run, which allowed Younghoe Koo to kick the game-winning 41-yard field goal to send the Falcons fans home happy. And when you look at the Panthers there, again, I think Steve Wilkes, he's shown a lot of effort, and this team is not giving up on him. And they are a competitive team. And I think for me, that's why I took Carolina +8. I do not think that even without Jamar Chase, I do not think the Bengals are a better team than the Panthers. And the thing is that up to this point, as I'm doing this video, I do not know how the Bengals are going to look without Jamar Chase. They may look phenomenal. Joe Mixon has done pretty well, and Joe Burrow. I mentioned this in last week's video. Ever since Week 1, I believe he said 15 touchdowns to only 2 turnovers. He's in the MVP conversation. He would be probably 4th on my list right now for the MVP because I think he's played that well over the last several weeks. But I just think even without Chase, they still have Higgins, they still have Boyd, they still have Hurst. They have a good enough run game with P. Ryan and Mixon. And I just think the Bengals defense, playing the limited offensive weapons that Carolina has now, I think they can cut off DJ Moore. I just don't think P.J. Walker can make enough plays with his feet and his arm to beat the Bengals in a tight environment. The last home game they played the Falcons, and Boyd and Chase both had about 256 yards and 3 touchdowns by the end of the half. So, I definitely think with the Panthers defense, especially with some of the parts of the weekend, I think definitely that same kind of impact can happen once again. I'm going to take Carolina +8 because I'm going to respect what they did, and I haven't seen what the Bengals did. If the Bengals blow out the Browns, and the Bengals try to get their first victory, Joe Burrow tries to get his first victory against the Browns, I will say this right now, I might change my against the spread pick to Cincinnati -8, but that will be after the game. But from what I saw out of Carolina, I think Carolina can definitely put up a much more competitive fight than Bengals fans think. So, that's why I like Cincinnati here to win straight up, but Carolina +8. The next game, the Green Bay Packers over the Detroit Lions. The Green Bay Packers, for the first time since 2006, are 2 games under 500 at 3-5. And it's the first time Aaron Rodgers has lost 4 straight games since weeks 8 to 11 of the 2016 season. One very positive thing that you can take out of this game against the Bills was how well and effective both Packers running backs ran the ball. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon had 30 carries for 197 yards. They were able to really pound the rock at an effective rate through the second half. I liked the Touraine, who caught the 1 touchdown. Romeo Doubs also had a nice touchdown catch. Rodgers did have that costly interception to Milano that basically ended the game. But I heard this crazy stat about the problem with the ability for the Packers receivers to get deep. And just shout out, to Goofy Dan Orlovsky. Aaron Rodgers over the last 5 weeks, when you talk about intermediate passes that go from 10 to 20 yards, 10 to 20 yards, there we go. Okay. He's only had 10 completions over the last 5 weeks between 10 to 20 yards. So that is basically telling you they are dinking and dunking better than Dunkin' Donuts with how, little they've been able to move the ball down the field and stretch the field vertically. And look, I am concerned, about it, but and that's why I took the Lions, because again, the Lions have arguably a top 10 offense in the league. They have been able to score points in most of their games. Take out the Patriots game where they laid a massive, they looked like little cubs. Take out that game. They have been able to score points at an incredible clip in most of these games. They were up for about 27 minutes in the game against the Dolphins. But like I said earlier in the video, after the fumble from the Dolphins player, the Dolphins offense was able to score on 5 of their next 6 drives. And the Lions just could not respond. And the Lions, just very much like the Raiders and the Jaguars, they are very bad in one-score games. They are 0-4 in one-score games for their 1-6 record. So, they're 1-2 in the games where it was by 8 points or more. And as bad as the Packers offense has been, as up and down, and they might not have Christian Watson for next week. He left the game due to concussion, and now he's in concussion protocol. I just can't take the Lions straight up. Because after that game against the Patriots, and shout out to Happens Picks, sorry buddy, but it's just they're like he says, instead of beep out of luck, they're just the same old Lions. And until the Lions can prove to me, I know they won that, the game last year in Detroit against the Packers, but it was week 18. It didn't really matter, and they played Jordan Love through the second half. I can't take them to win this game. I think the Packers, now that they realize that, hey, they can run the ball effectively. I've seen Ramondre Stevenson have a good game. I've seen Dalvin Cook have a very good game. I saw, Kenneth Walker and Rashad Penny have great games. I think if the Packers commit to the run and play effectively, I think the Packers should be able to win this game. Could the Lions get competitive? Yes, because I think the Lions' offense has shown to you with their offensive line and with some of the defensive injuries the Packers have been going through, especially some of the defensive injuries they suffered last night, I think the Lions can definitely get into a shootout with the Packers. But just of how bad the defense is, if you're just going with quarterback at that point, I'm going to trust Aaron Rodgers and whatever he has on offense compared to Jared Goff in this type of wild shootout, which I think this game could become. So that's why I like Green Bay here to win straight up, the Detroit plus 3.5. The next game, the New England Patriots over the Indianapolis Colts. This one to me is fairly simple because as good as Sam Ehlinger had his moments, and Jonathan Taylor did screw him with, I believe, his second career fumble. Since 1966, Colts quarterbacks that have their first ever start in the league are now 1-16. Fun trivia fact for anybody out there: as I was doing this video research, the last quarterback to win at their first start, you have to go back to the immortal Chris Chandler back in 1988 for the Colts that got his first win as a starter in his first game. The Colts, they missed Kwity Paye. The secondary got burned. Terry McLaurin had a fantastic reception at the 1-yard line that allowed Heineke to sneak it in. I believe Jonathan Taylor had his second career fumble, which cost them a drive that could have put up some points. They lost a decent defensive contributor in Tyquan Lewis, who had to get carted off. Best wishes to him, depending on how significant or severe the injury is for him. And it's one of those things to where I was trying and I couldn't really find the exact statistic about what's Belichick's record against quarterbacks that are starting in their first or second game. But he's been dominant against rookies. And I know Ellinger is technically not a rookie. He's been in the league now for about 3 years. But that's what this feels like. And when you look at what he did against Zach Wilson, or look at what he's done through his career to Zach Wilson, the Jets only score about 12 points a game. He puts up about 205.3 yards per game, Zach Wilson does. His TD interception ratio is 2-7. And his career passer rating against the Patriots is now 50.5, which is downright pathetic. I do think Sam Ellinger could play better than Zach Wilson could against this Patriots defense, but it's also now 13 straight wins for the Patriots against the Jets, which is kind of insane to think about. And again, I saw this line, and I saw that a lot of people were believing in the Colts. They think the Colts, because of how Mac Jones played, he got bailed out from some tough roughing the passer calls. You had Mac really not being able to move the ball, and really just Zach just giving the game away. Zach Wilson did end with 355 yards passing. But I just think in this kind of instance, where the last time when you had a team in Indianapolis that is starting a brand new quarterback, he could watch all the film. He's never played a Belichick defense. And just knowing how bad it's been, for Zach and these young quarterbacks, putting Ellinger in there, especially on the road, I don't think it's going to be pretty. I think Mac Jones, he doesn't have to do it a lot, but I think he can do enough with his arm and experience and manage the game to beat Ellinger, who I think he's going to at least throw 1 to 2 interceptions in this game alone. Or he's going to have 1 to 2 turnovers by himself alone. And that's why I took the Patriots -6. I do not think this game, as awkward as the Patriots offense looked, and I know Devontae Parker leaving with a knee injury is a significant injury, and I will acknowledge that, and that could be big going into this week's game. I just think the Patriots, the running game, the knowledge and savvy of Belichick, and just the inexperience of Ellinger alone, I think the Patriots win this game by at least a touchdown. It's not going to be pretty. It may not be from Mac. It might be from Ramondre and Damian. It might be from Hunter and Jonnu. Jonnu's been an absolute failure. But I just can't take the Colts in this game, the cover, just because I just think the Patriots defense will just smother Ellinger. And he will have a very tough time. So that's why I like New England here -6 and New England straight up. The next game, the Buffalo Bills over the New York Jets. This is one, to me, where, look, the Bills keep rolling. They're the only team in the league to have 100-plus rushing yards in each of their first 7 games. They have the most interceptions in the league, and they have the best defense in terms of points per game. I just mentioned all the bad stuff about Zach Wilson. And, look, the last time that Zach Wilson played in his one game last year, because he was inactive the first time, they lost by 17, and he only threw for 87 yards against the Bills in his one game. I do think he will throw for more yards. I just don't know if he will be able to limit the turnovers against this Bills defense, which is better than the Patriots. And I just think the Bills, they know what's at stake. They know how sloppy they were in the second half. They only scored 3 points. They had a couple, 3 and outs. It wasn't as great as the first half when they put up 24. It was enough, and they still were able to get a double-digit victory. But I just think against the Jets, they'll look more like they've been against these bad teams, to where they will definitely throw a great left or right-handed hook that knocks out the opponent, I think, very early in the game. I thought about it, and I was like, well, okay, the Jets' defense, it's played a lot better, and it definitely showed some moments. But I just think at the end of the day, Zach Wilson was playing Mac Jones, and Zach Wilson's now having to play Josh Allen for a second time. And those are 2 completely different quarterbacks, 2 completely different styles of offensive talent. And I just don't think the Jets' defense will be able to hold up against this Bills offense, whoever it may have at different spots. So that's why I like Buffalo here, -10.5, and Buffalo straight up. The next game, the Minnesota Vikings over the Washington Commanders. This is one to where the Minnesota Vikings, I'm going to congratulate Dalvin Cook. He had 111 yards rushing. Kirk Cousins had a nice 17-yard scramble for a touchdown as well. The Vikings continue to do what I've been most impressed by, which is that Kirk Cousins, they're winning these close games. Every Viking game to me is about the same, to where, like, whenever if they need the offense to get a first down or a score, they'll get it. And when the offense isn't working, when the defense needs to be able to get a turnover or a stop, they seem like they'll be able to get it. And they just play the same consistent football every single week, and they are winning these one-score games. They're now 5-0 in one-score games. And I just think against the Cardinals, it's just, weird. And I look at it and just go, with the Vikings, I just think it continues. I do want to mention, though, one very concerning thing I think the Vikings need to consider. I do believe they do need to add a kicker or try to find another kicker because Greg Joseph this year, in his 14 field goals, he's missed 5. He's missed 3 extra points. And it's just weird watching him go through the year because I never thought Greg Joseph was a great kicker in the first place. But he's had moments, too, where he's cost them some of the games due to his leg not being the most accurate or most consistent. So that would be the one concern I tell any Viking fan, shout out to GNOs, that I'd be concerned about with the Vikings and their kicking game and the rest. Because the offense is pretty consistent. Irv and Munt are not bad at tight end. They have a phenomenal wide receiver. Thielen's a below average 2 at this point, but they have KJ Osborne who can make some plays. They have Cook and Madison running together, which is always impressive. And look, Kirk Cousins is 1-0 against his former team. So he's played the Commanders before. He won the game, I think, by 10 points. It's a 1 o'clock game. And even though Taylor Heineke has won this job from Carson Wentz over the last 2 weeks, it is very telling to me that Jonathan Allen, one of their best defensive players, said to the media, when they see Taylor Heineke on the field, they know they have a chance to win. I did not hear anybody say that about Carson Wentz, and even when Carson Wentz is able to get off of IR in 2 weeks, I do believe Taylor Heineke will continue to hold on to that job, regardless of if Carson Wentz is back to 100%. This game could be interesting because, again, Taylor Heineke, he makes plays. He's a very, kind of scrappy quarterback, and the Vikings have shown you they are always in these close games. So it takes one turnover from Cousins, it takes one fumble, it takes one mistake from the Vikings to get the Commanders a chance. I think the Vikings play a fundamental, crisp, and sound game against a team that is on a bit of a roll. Remember, I told you last week, every year the Commanders somehow get into these 4-game losing streaks and 4-game winning streaks. So definitely now for the 3rd straight year, can they get a 4-game winning streak with the roster they have? And I just do not think it happens. I think the Vikings play another typical Vikings game. It's close. It's sound. There's a couple turnovers involved. And I just think the Vikings just make a few more plays to outplay the Commanders in a big game in the Nation's Cap. So that's why I like Minnesota here, -3, and Minnesota straight up. The next game, the Jacksonville Jaguars over the Las Vegas Raiders. Guys, boys and girls, this is the crappy / cruddy toss-up game of the week. I don't really have a lot to say about, analysis, to be honest. I could tell you that the Raiders had their worst shutout since 2014 when they were up, they got blown out by the St. Louis Rams 52-0. The Raiders couldn't get past midfield with about 3 minutes left in the game from Jarrett Stidham. Devontae Adams had his lowest receiving yards in a game where he had a reception for 3 yards. Derek Carr threw for 101 yards and an interception. Or I could tell you that after a 2-1 start, Trevor Lawrence has had 5 straight losses, and he played Russell Wilson and had a Russell Wilson Memorial 1-yard goal line interception to Justin Simmons, which basically cost him the game. I do want to give Travis Etienne credit for 156 yards, but honestly, the reason why I'm going with Jacksonville is I saw Jacksonville do something. Okay? I saw Jacksonville actually move the ball offensively. Trevor Lawrence did have that 1 touchdown pass to Evan Ingram. Just give me a minute here, everybody. I just want to revel in my own hatred and frustration for Mr. Joshua McDaniels. Okay? That man is an absolute bum. He is a hobo walking on the street that was made by Bill Belichick. And everybody out there that thought, you need to give him another chance. What was about 12 years ago Why are you all being so harsh about things that happened 12 years ago? Or even 5 years ago with that whole fiasco with the Colts? No. That man is the scum of the earth. Okay? And he does not... He deserves all the smoke. All the hatred from Raider fans because they screwed a good man in Rich Bisaccia. When I saw this team, look, this Raiders team, it wasn't a perfect team last year, but you saw in those moments, all the controversy and all that they liked Rich. They believed in Rich. They got Rich a playoff berth, and they were literally 4 yards away from tying the Bengals if Carr didn't throw that pick. All those Raiders today look like they quit. They look like they don't care. And honestly, I wouldn't care for Josh McDaniels either. He is a evil, he is a mad human being. He is a human being that has no passion. He is a guy that was propped up by Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. And everybody thought McDaniels was going to be the opposite of what every Belichick disciple was. He was the good one because he lasted there for 11 years. The people seem to forget that he left the Broncos when he got fired and was hired by the St. Louis Rams for the 2011 season. Guess what, boys and girls? His offense was. He was 32nd after he got fired from Denver. Nobody seems to remember that. I do. But, again, Josh McDaniels is the scum of the earth. He is an absolute bum. And if I'm Mark Davis, I am firing that man after this year because you can't let go of Derek Carr because of the whole thing with Devontae Adams. But, like, that, it's just so thrilling that people are finally realizing that this guy was a mistake from Jump Street. They should have kept Bisaccia. They should have. They should have kept Bisaccia and let Josh McDaniels just stay with New England and basically suck off Belichick's teat until he left, or until Belichick retired, and then he could have got fired by Robert Kraft 2 or 3 years later. But yeah, like, that's just the absolute problem. And everybody out there that defended McDaniels, you look like fools now. I knew from the jump that McDaniels was a scrub, a bum, a waste of a human life being as a football coach. And I feel pretty vindicated about that today. Sorry, a little rant. I just needed to say that just because of how bad they looked. Against the same team that didn't have Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, or any of that. Okay, so. But, and again, like, and that's the thing. Could the Jags lose? Sure. And look, Derek Carr's better. The Raiders have better offensive talent. But I'm just going to trust that Peterson can somehow get a win over McDaniels. I think Peterson in the offense can do enough to win. You know, I'll trust Peterson's coaching over McDaniels. Look, this is a hard game for me because I'm not the biggest Trevor Lawrence fan, and I'm not as harsh on Trevor as I am with McDaniels, the human being. I do want to realize that Trevor Lawrence, you know, he's not that great, and I still think Mac Jones is still leading that 2021 class in terms of how good the best quarterback in that class is, though it's a very low bar. But, yeah, you know, so one of those things for me, either my frustration for McDaniels can either continue, or my criticism of Trevor Lawrence, one of those has to stop for a week. And I don't know which one I want to root for personally. But I am going to take the Jags. I do think the Jags criticism stops for at least this week. Just because I feel like, after what you saw out of the Raiders, I don't even think with how bad the Jags are, I don't think you can go with them going into the next week. So that's why I like Jacksonville +1 and Jacksonville straight up. and you're welcome for my own personal venting session there about Josh McDaniels. So anybody out there enjoyed that? Good for you. If you did not want to hear that, I will put a timestamp for the other picks. You just don't have to hear this one for the Jags Raiders. All right, so that's why I like Jacksonville here +1 and Jacksonville straight up. The next game, the Seattle Seahawks over the Arizona Cardinals. This one to me is where I'm going to take Seattle to win this game based on the fact that these two teams played each other 3 weeks ago. And Seattle's offensive line, which, for years under Russell Wilson, was one of the worst in the league. So far through 8 games, they've only given up 19 sacks. Which is incredibly more impressive and incredibly more consistent. I love what Kenneth Walker is doing. He's definitely running the ball well. I do think right now he is definitely second in terms of my offensive rookie of the year rankings. I do think Chris Olave, the wide receiver for Ohio State for the Saints, should be the winner of the award. And I think here is something very key that it's very fun, but it's very telling if you follow this kind of stuff. So Kyler Murray, after every year when Call of Duty gets released, and the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare came out on Friday, October 21st, after they played the Saints the day before, Kyler Murray in his career, after the new Call of Duty is released in any form, Modern Warfare, when you have a Warzone, Modern Warfare, Warzone, any Call of Duty game, Kyler Murray for his career is 7-17 once COD gets released. And he did not look great yesterday. He has one of the lowest passer ratings on third down. He only had, so he's thrown a few two horrible interceptions. And I just am going to continue this COD trend. It's a weird trend. But from how much he's talking about loving video games and how well he is as a video gamer, I just think, again, the Seahawks are playing better. And I can't see how Kyler Murray, with his studying and all that, I'm just going to continue rolling with that. Could the Cardinals win this game? Sure, because I think DeAndre Hopkins has been fantastic. In his 2 games back, he has 22 receptions for 262 yards and a touchdown. He has been a majority of the Cardinals' offense. But I just feel like with the Cardinals that they're not going to be able to get it together. And I think Seattle's defense can do enough. And I think with their running game and their consistency, I just believe in Seattle's world right now compared to Arizona's. So, and also the difference in the game for the Cardinals and the Vikings were those 3 turnovers. I genuinely believe if the Vikings did not turn the ball over 3 times, or the Cardinals did not turn the ball over 3 times, they would have been able to win that game because I think the Cardinals' offense did enough. So once again, I'm going to take Seattle's momentum. Kyler coming off a COD weekend. And just Seattle's all-around overall talent perspective. And DK Metcalf is able to play, which is huge. So that's like Seattle here plus 2.5 and Seattle straight up. The next game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Los Angeles Rams. This is one to me where the Rams, the difference for me is, as I said before, the Bucs gave up 202 yards rushing against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Or the Bucs gave up 202 yards rushing against the Baltimore Ravens. They are playing a rushing offense in the Rams that have the second fewest rushing yards for the year and the second fewest rushing yards per attempt. So the Rams cannot run the football. And the Rams now have lost 4 consecutive seasons. Not games, seasons. So that means the Niners have swept the Rams 4 consecutive years in these games. It is just downright amazing to me that Kyle Shanahan has a below 500 record, and Sean McVay has Super Bowl appearances, but this man can never beat Shanahan. He never can do it. Jimmy Garoppolo every year just goes into LA, he goes into San Francisco, plays an effective game, gets a few good throws, and he just always seems to win. It's amazing to me. But in that game, they had Tyler Higbee get hurt. I believe he came back in the game, and the bigger injury that's a bigger concern was Cooper Kupp. He hurt his ankle. He was in a walking boot and was kind of hobbling around after the game. He said he avoided a major injury, but I believe that Cooper Kupp not being 100%, if he can go, if the treatment can be effective, I think that's going to be just too significant for me to not go with the Bucs. Look, Brady for the first time in his career has lost 5 out of 6 games, and he also passed Ben Roethlisberger for being the most sacked quarterback in NFL history, so congratulations, Tom, for 20-plus years of work and hitting that mark. And also, again, he, as everybody knows, he just finalized his divorce, I believe, last Wednesday. So he's going through a very tough time in his personal life. But I just feel like with the Bucs and Rams, this is a game to where whoever loses this game, you could argue the loser of this game is not going to make the playoffs. Whoever wins this game might have a better chance, and you could argue still, even if Brady loses, he's still in the NFC South, which is not going anywhere by a long shot. But I am taking Tampa here because I just trust this Tampa defense to get to the offensive line, even without Shaq Barrett there. And I can't trust the Rams. If the Rams can run the ball, that would be a massive indictment against Todd Bowles, but I don't think they can. And I think the Bucs can get healthy with some of their secondary guys if they can play. And I think that's going to be enough to hold this limited Rams offense to give Tampa a big victory to put them right back in control, right back in the center of the NFC South race. So that's like Tampa Bay here, minus 2.5, and Tampa Bay straight up. And in the final 2 games, the Kansas City Chiefs over the Tennessee Titans. I'm taking the Kansas City Chiefs here because this is one of those games, very much like Tennessee played against the Packers that week last year. This is one of those games to where the Tennessee Titans are going into this game winning 5 straight games, playing very effectively, leading the AFC South by at least 2.5 games or a game and a half on every one of their opponents. But they're playing a Chief team that is just significantly better than them. This is going to be a game, and I honestly thought about this. And I know, look, Ryan Tannehill got hurt, and I want to give Derrick Henry some credit. He is now the all-time leading rushing touchdown leader for the Titans at 75, and he's rushed for 200-plus yards against Texans 4 straight times. And they said only like 2 other, he's the only running back that has done that many times, in their career, So that's an incredible moment there. And I really thought about it. I'm going to stick with this pick regardless of who's starting a quarterback. Even if Tannehill can get healthy, even though he was dealing with an illness along with his injury, even if Tannehill can get healthy, I'm going to stick with the Chiefs minus 11 because Andy Reid coming off a bye is 19-3 in the regular season, and Patrick Mahomes is 17-7 in prime time in those games. And I just think, again, I have a feeling that when they did this in week 2 against Buffalo, they got absolutely shellacked. And I think it's very much going to be the same way. If it's Malik, I feel 100% confident in it. Tannehill, so if Tannehill plays, I would argue to people, maybe take the Titans plus 11. But I think, with the way the Chiefs have been playing and that offense is going, especially with some of the defensive injuries the Titans have suffered, I think it's a smart pick to go with the Chiefs regardless. So that's what I'm going to do. But I would just tell everybody out there, if Tannehill plays, maybe think about the Titans plus 11. Maybe. If it's Malik, who won't do it for 55 yards, yeah, definitely take the Chiefs minus 11 because there's no way that Derrick Henry's going to go for that many yards, and Malik can't, win the game off in the second game in that kind of environment. So that's why Kansas City are minus 11, Kansas City straight up. And finally, the Baltimore Ravens over the New Orleans Saints. I am taking the Baltimore Ravens here because, look, the Ravens won back-to-back games for the first time all year. They had a weird defensive start to where, we got a big muff punt where we pulled the Charger PJ Lock play where we shoved the Tampa Bay Buccaneer into the returner. And then we did give up the touchdown the first drive, but then we held up pretty well. I do want to congratulate Alvin Kamara for scoring his first 3 TDs of the year. And now the Saints, since week 15 of last year, have had 2 shutouts since then. That was the best game that I've seen Dennis Allen coach as a head coach of his career. That was incredibly impressive, especially about Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, and Marshawn Lattimore on the field. And I'm just going to trust these couple stats. Lamar Jackson on the road, he's played 4 Monday Night Football games. He's 3-1. He is 2-1 on the road in those games. And Andy Dalton, who's had a very long and documented history against playing the Ravens for all his time in Cincinnati, along with some other time, the other year in Chicago when he played him, he is 8-10 all time against the Ravens. And as great as the Saints have played, and I know how talented that defense is, and we lost Gus Edwards for another week due to a hamstring injury, and J.K. Dobbins is out for another 3 to 4 weeks, so we're going to have a tough time running the ball. I do think with Lamar and his arm and his ability, should be able to win the game based off of the talent that we have and just the ability of Lamar. I think Lamar outplays Dalton, and I think our defense shuts down a very unique offense where I think the biggest concern we'll have to deal with is Taysom Hill. But I think we have enough defensive players and skill to shut down the Saints. So that's why I like Baltimore here -3 and Baltimore straight up. But that is it. Those are my picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, and subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page to see people like Andrew Warren, Bridgewater's Finest, Edwin Lerner, Johnny Grecki Sports, and check out other people like Fire and Rim Sports and Sports Fan Entertainment for their predictions and content. And that is it. So good luck to all players, coaches, teams, fantasy players, and fellow prognosticators. I had a very tough time in fantasy. And until next week, this is Matthew and Fanatic signing off. Until next time, everyone, so long.